Thank you. I'll hand over.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'll just share my screen here. Okay, that's just the intro. Normally when you're doing a systematic review, you have a question to answer, or you have a topic and then you make a question out of it. And then you try and just went too fast, I think. It's not loading properly. Okay. Hang on a minute. Okay. I'll start with this one. So you normally ask a question if you have a topic to do your systematic review in. So I've used a question as a sample. So looking at factors influencing mental health amongst conflict-affected teenagers in low and middle-income countries. So what we really need to do is put this in a framework. So to do that, we have to look at the main concepts in the question. So the population here would be conflict-affected teenagers. And our phenomena of interest is mental health. Normally we use a PICO framework for systematic reviews, but if it's not an intervention type study, then we use an interest that we are studying in a population. So the I becomes an interest of phenomena of interest instead of an intervention. And we are not looking for a comparison or an outcome. We are looking at the context we are studying the interest in. So the PICO becomes PCO, sort of studying context. So the interest here is mental health in this question. And we are looking at low and middle income countries. The first thing we need to do is make a search grid. So our concepts are listed in a search grid. This is quite important because it guides your search. So you make a search grid and put your population and your interest in your context. And then you start searching the database and getting some terms. So on the outset, we can just think of terms like conflict affected, armed conflict or war affected. And then I know they don't know this subject at all, so I just go and do a search either on Google Scholar or on the databases, and then we come up with subject headings as well. So you can see here, I've got subject headings here for refugees and war crimes, and then those are my words for the population that I'm looking at. And then we go to the interest that we are looking at. So my question says mental health in conflict affected people. So mental health and all the terms that I could think of, stress, distress, anxiety, and fear. And then according to my research that I did quickly, I looked at the database to see mental health as a heading. So mental health is a subject heading, stress is a subject heading, and anxiety is a subject heading. And the reason we use keywords and subject headings is because if we are searching for evidence, we do not want to miss anything that is out there. That's why we use as many terms as possible. And the context, same thing. So I'm looking at some key terms and the subject headings as well. Okay. Any questions from anyone about this search grid? Does anyone have any questions for the search grid? No? Okay. So I'll use this search grid that I made for the topic, and then I'll take this to the database to search. So basically, you need to see what question you are answering, put it into a framework, a PICO framework, like population interest and context, and then work out the keywords, and then go to the database to explore and expand your search. Okay, just stop share this one. Is that all right? Yep. So I just share my Where's just go to the university website. So on the library website, you can find databases to search. It's listed over under resources, electronic resources. If you know the title of the database, you can search by title, or there are broad subject areas here, or otherwise you go under guides and go subject guides by school. And then the broad subject areas are listed here too. Most of the databases you're searching will be listed on the health sciences, so science and health sciences. In the database I'll show you today, sorry, it's not the right one. Okay, health sciences. Okay, so the database are listed in the middle on here. So normally when you do a systematic search or systematic search for systematic review, you use more than 2 databases. So I think in your assignment it says do CINAHL and 2 others. So you can do CINAHL and any of the others listed below. Or you can search it from the library website to see which database you're going to use. So I'll just show you in CINAHL today. So this is the search platform of the database. So most of the databases will have boxes like this, and your combination for terms are OR and AND, which is if you're using OR, you're combining similar terms. For example, for the population we're looking at, I have so many terms listed. So if you're searching those terms, you use an OR, and then when you combine 2 concepts together, you use an AND. I'll show you shortly how that's done in the search. So this database here is called CINAHL. It's written here. But on this same platform, there's other databases. So I'll just show you how you go there. So if you say choose database, so you can see you have a Medline here and Scite-info, one of the major databases. So some of the ones that you can choose on the same platform in the to search. So if you know how to search CINAHL, you can search them all. So the medical headings that I was talking about is over here. You can explore them by yourself one by one if you like the headings, or you can do it on the search page. So if I enter something over here, then it will, I can display, using this suggest search term, I can display the term. So if I entered mental health here. So if this little box is ticked, then it will take me to a subject heading. And that's all I have to do is just enter here, suggest this, and search. And then comes a subject display. So if you thought of a keyword in your topic, then it's best to check the subject headings to see if there is one. The subject headings are assigned by people who have indexed the article, and they have used an authority list to describe the articles. So it's very important that you use your keyword as well as your subject heading. So you can see mental health here is a subject. So you can choose mental health here and also your keyword at the same time. And you can see on the side, it's written here, so mental health is subject heading and as a keyword. And see the operators here and then or. Always make sure this is an or if you're combining with an or. So it will set either subject heading mental health or mental health as a keyword. Keyword searching happens in the title and abstract of the field. So after that, you click on search. Okay, so you can easily tell from the search that this is a medical heading and this is just a keyword. And the keywords, if you want to find it together, like mental health appearing together, you put it in inverted commas. So it picks up together. You can see in the results it's picking up together here, over here, and over here. Okay. So once you start doing the searches will go in a search history, which is just under here. So that's the step one. Like I was saying, you have to do like things together. So if I'm just searching mental health, then I will select all the terms that I can think of for mental health and do those searches first. So if you're doing a search with your people, you do your population first. Well, I should have done my population first. So population first. So all the results are searches are done in a very systematic way, so you don't lose anything. So I'll just continue with my phenomena of interest, which is mental health. So that's my first one posted. Every time you do a search here and then you want to continue again, you have to clear this box. So I can do stress. And always check whether there is a subject heading. So we have stress here. Sometimes if you're not sure, you can check a little bit of a scope note to see what it means. Because when I was doing research, I'm not a subject expert, so I had to keep on checking. And sometimes it sort of jogs your memory here. If you can't think of a term, if you type in a term, you get a map, and sometimes you can pick up other terms from here as well. So it's very important to map to the subject heading. So I choose stress and my keyword, and then same thing here, it continues. So you can keep adding your searches like that. See, goes 1 and 2, and it's very systematic. So you pick it up subject heading, key term, subject heading, key term. Yeah. So that's why the search grid is very important, because you have all your terms listed down, so you don't miss it. And the reason you do the search grid with all your terms is because you'll be applying the same base terms to all the databases, so that all the searches are the same. Anxiety. Okay, so I'll just quickly do this again, anxiety. So you get in the hang of this, I hope. So you choose search. Okay, so I'll clear this, and I'll just enter the population. So displaced persons. Oops. Okay, see, because I was thinking of displaced persons and I wasn't thinking of refugees, so the database is actually using refugees for displaced persons. So that's how important the subject heading is. So you click on refugees, and you can also use displaced persons as a keyword. The reason is that if some of the articles they're talking about the displaced persons have missed the word refugees in the subject heading, then you'll miss it. That's why it's important to use both. Okay, so that's a bit of the population there. I just clear this one. And our context was we're looking at low income or middle income countries. So low-income countries, I've done this search before, so I know that this is a subject heading, but in the beginning I would not have known that low and middle-income countries is actually a subject heading. So low and middle-income countries is my question, and I choose my low-income country and search. Okay, so I clear this now. But here you can see there's another trick. So if you wanted to also include middle income countries as a keyword, you can just follow the line and edit the search. So you don't have to do it separately. So here you go for and inverted commas, middle income countries, and inverted commas, so it finds it together and then save. Then it gets added to your search. So once you've done all the Pico terms, and then you try and combine all these. So in the beginning, I did stress and mental health and anxiety. So that's the issue that I'm looking at in the people. The population group, I'm looking at the displaced persons. I could add more terms there from my table. Depends how many results I get, and then I expand on terms, and then the middle income countries. So what we need to do now is make sure this part is clear, and then we combine here. So S2, S3, these are the same things, so all related to mental health. So this will be a search with an O, which is sitting over here. So you get the set for mental health. You could also combine as you go, so it's easier for you to understand. And once you've done that, you'll see it appears over here. But to do another combination, you need to clear this. And then you, so the others are okay because I have the single lines here. So what we need to do is all the stress results, which is here, combined with refugees and low-income countries. So now we combine all three. And this will be with an end. Okay, so after all that, I got 16 results. And the results are displayed here. I'm not sure how big this assignment is, but if you're really wanting to grab everything that is out there on your subject, then you might want to rethink, because if I was doing the assignment that I'm actually, the question that I'm looking at about people in displaced places and mental health problems, I would add more terms to get better results. So like in here, you can add more terms and check out more subject headings, because you can use more terms here for displaced persons, like people in war crimes. And even if you want to make it more specific, you could say Syrian war or some other places where people are getting displaced around the world. And then I think here also, if you're trying to narrow it down to a country, you can add a country as well. So depending on the results that you get. But with these few words, I've got 16 results here. So once you go into the result, so if I just go in one here, because the first search you'll do is you'll be mining a lot of terms to build up your search grid. Because once your search grid is solid, and then you can run the final search. So here, the reason I'm showing you this is because you can mine terms from here. You can see what subject headings they're using, and also the abstract, you can pick up terms from there as well. So to build your search grid. Okay, I'll just go back to the results here. Computer's very slow. Okay. So on the side here, you can limit in a lot of ways. Normally, I don't suggest limiting to full text unless you have a very short assignment due, because sometimes this particular database will not have everything full text. So if you limit it to full text, you might miss some important research. So it's better not to apply that limit. You can apply date, and if you want more limits, you can go to show. And you do this when you have done your final search and your final result. You can narrow it down to publication date. You have a date to apply to your search. You can use human as a limiting factor. You can also use language, English language, and also publication type. Say if you're looking for any publication type, or you want to actually look at another review, that is how it's done. Systematic review, if you're looking at to see how a systematic review is done, you can easily do that. And then narrow it down, and then you go and search again, and then it will search. So I'll just narrow down this one to English language because I have a very small set. So English and then search. So all my results are in English. And another way to look at finding terms for your grid is look at subject headings here. So if you posted some searches here and you think these are not quite relevant, but on the side you'll be able to see some subject headings that you'll be able to use. For example, right now looking at this, I would use post-traumatic stress because that these people would suffer those sorts of disorders. So that's another thing I would add to my search. So the trick is that you explore your topic in the database, and then you try and build up your search grid so that all the terms are listed, and then you apply all those terms to 3 databases to your searching. There's also age here, and gender, and place as well. Okay. So the best thing is that if you want to apply any of these limits, just do your search, complete it, and then under the limit to, and then go show more. And here you can apply all the limits at the same time instead of doing it one by one. Okay. So I'll just cancel these. Once you've done your search, you can also save your search, which is you can save it and export it to maybe Reference or any bibliographic software you're using. So on the page options, you can display as many results, or a maximum 50. There are more than that. And then you can share. Oops, sorry, it's jumping around. So share and add the results to a folder. So I've got 16 that adds to a folder. Once you've added to the folder, you'll be able to tell because it gets colored. And the folder is sitting over here on top. And then you can look at the folder. And all the searches will be here. And you can select them all and export, email, or print, or save to a file. It only takes the references, not the full text. Okay, so once you've done the search, so if you've done the search and you are happy with the results, then usually it's a good idea to create an account in the database, so you sign in. It's not your UWS login, you can just make up a user ID and password. And once you finish your searches, you can save the searches. So the search, if you click on Save Search, it will save all these searches into your account. So next time when you come to the database, you just sign in and go to the folder and then call up your search. So if you have made a mistake or if you want to add more terms, you can easily call up the search and then edit the search. Just like I showed you, you can edit from here. So if you call up like that, and then you can edit, add terms or remove terms. If you find too many results for your search, if you have a topic that has, like if you're looking at obesity or cancer or something, and you're starting out and you're finding too many things, So instead of just starting to do subject search and searches with keywords, you try and narrow your search down to a particular field. So if I just picked up obesity, for example, in the title field, it will only pick up in the title field, so it will narrow the search down a bit, and it will most likely the article is about obesity. Maybe I should. Okay, so you can see in the search results it says obesity in children, and there's 2,203 results, and that's just for the title. So if you look at the titles, you can see it picks up obesity and children in the title. So it's most likely that these articles are talking about obesity in children. So subjects like that, you first try and narrow down your search to the title field just to scope out to see what's out there. But when you have built your search grid with all the terms, then it's good. It will be best, or it's preferable for you to do the search in a proper way, because then you can't sort of restrict it to the title, because you might miss some evidence if you do that. But to start on a big topic, narrow search down to title and try and build on the search terms. Because I've got such a large result now here, I can also look at subject headings here and pick up from here. And also from the side, see major subject headings, it says pediatric obesity. So if you're trying to narrow a question down, you might just, instead of doing children, you can go pediatric, or maybe look at a particular aspect of the topic. So you might go physical activity for obesity, or you might decide to do health promotion activities for people, children with obesity, or you might look at the diet. So it helps you to narrow down your question. So then you are able to make a proper search strategy for your systematic review. And this is what is called the search strategy. And once you've done it, I'm not sure whether you need it for your assignment, but you might need it for your assignment. You can screenshot it if you like, or there's a print search history that you can print it out. I don't know, or you can screenshot this one as well. So all your searches you'll be able to see. Because the reason it is called a systematic search, because you systematically look at keywords, find subject headings, and then you systematically do the search. So you search your Picoterms first, which I should have done first. So this would have been done first, and then the phenomena of interest, and then the context that you're looking at, and then it's easy for you to combine. Through my experience in the library, I can tell you the students who are doing systematic searches, most of the time they make errors here because they are combining the wrong line numbers. That's why it's be very easy to make mistakes if you're not doing it in a systematic way. And if you need to delete a search from here, just click on the search you want to delete and delete search. Okay. I'll just stop here to see if anybody has any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Now's your chance to use a wonderful resource available here with Katrina Online. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? All make sense? Yeah. So you are required to show your search strategy. So yeah, mental note to where you hit print. It's an appendix in that report. So I am looking for you to include that to ensure that you have undergone that same process that was just shown to you. So yeah, important just to take all of that on board. And like I said, we'll record this if you need to revisit all those little tricks, which I learn something new every time I watch you or something I've forgotten. I think, oh, that's right, I've forgotten that there's that little, like that edit option. I'd forgotten that you could go right in and actually edit. So when Katrina was showing that you can do like low income and or middle income, and you could actually edit the terms, that's really handy if you're wanting to just really, because the thing is, you don't want to end up with thousands of articles, because then you know you haven't got a very systematic search. So you want to really think about those search terms and how you can really put those limits on effectively, but also to a point that you're not restricting what is out there. So you're not doing, it's not an inaccurate reflection of what is actually in the literature. So yeah, so thank you. It's a wonderful resource that we have to be able to have you join us today. Going last chance, no questions for Katrina before she heads off? No. All right, well, there's the online, you can ask the librarian online option, isn't there, Katrina, is that right? Yeah.
Do you mind if I share you that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Again. Okay, so on the library website, just go there. There's a chat box. So you can ask questions of the librarian here. So the simple questions they can answer, like which database you want to choose, this is your topic, and and what sort of assignment you're doing. They'll be able to answer some of the questions there. But if you ask them an extended question like how to do a systematic review, then they probably direct you to me. So yeah.
And so when you, I know that your assignment's due a few weeks off, but hopefully you're starting to think about it now, because week 6 actually isn't that far away. We're in week 4. But if you don't remember something, then yeah, either use that option to contact Katrina, or email me, and I can also email her as well. That's another option.
Yeah, I'm happy to get emails from you, Catherine. So if there's any issues, just let me know.
All right, thank you. And are you able, do you mind if we share your slides on views as well, Katrina, the ones that you used today?
Yeah, sure. I'll just PDF that copy of the slide. I've got some screenshots from the database too, so that might be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, if you just email them to me, and then I'll upload them on the tutorial view site for today, so everyone can revisit you. Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you around. Thanks. All right. So we've still got tutorial. We've still got a few minutes remaining for us, and a few things to cover. For the rest of our tutorial today. I hope you all found that useful. Some of it you may have done, some of it might be a refresher, some of it you just think, oh, I didn't know that little trick was there. I do that quite often. But yeah, we'll put those resources up that you can tap back into. So today we're talking about chronic disease in the contemporary era, and so much to cover in the, we really probably should do this over 2 weeks, but we've got other topics to cover in the rest of all the time. But anyway, so there is a lot of content on the folder for this week, but you know, we don't have an exam at this unit's not about absolutely getting on top of everything. It's a unit for you to absorb the information and read it as you like at your time, you know, something that you can take on board, you know, your assignments. So you've got your own project and your specialization that you're building with this review, and then the project that you develop, and at the same time you can be enriching your learning, your public health knowledge and learning with what I'm putting up on the view site, just to really kind of get your head in that space of what's possible in this public health sphere, but more also looking at from a critical point of view. So take your time to get to work through the content on there, and But for today, the discussion topic that we had for the tutorial was, is a change of direction for chronic disease prevention needed? And I think this is interesting, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts, because, you know, the stats are there and we keep talking about them, and it's sort of been 20 years or more of the tsunami of obesity, and, you know, the wave of diabetes, and and, you know, and yet there's not a lot of downturn in it. We're seeing a few, interestingly enough, there is a downturn in stroke, but this is more a really interesting sort of fact in the epidemiology of chronic disease, is that there is a downturn in stroke because of a different medication regime that's reducing the risk of stroke. But it's not necessarily from a public health perspective. It's not due to any policy per se, or change of behaviour, or, you know, all those things that we're working in this field so hard to do, and to change behaviours. And I'm not saying that that's not needed, but, you know, can we be doing something else? So I thought that I would just open up today and see what you all thought about that. You're going into this world. This is going to be part of your core business. Healthcare systems are going to crush under chronic disease in the future. So we need to start making headway into reducing it to some degree. I think the States, for the first time in this year and next year, the projection is that there's a downturn in the life expectancy in the US. So for the first time, we're not seeing an increase in life expectancy. So, you know, globally this is, and we've got low middle income countries that got the double burden of disease that we talk about, where they're still experiencing malnutrition, but they're in terms of undernutrition, but they're also experiencing malnutrition and overnutrition. So it's a issue for everyone, everywhere, and we're in big trouble if we don't start maybe looking at it differently.
I've had a question.
Yeah, go Hush.
So why there is so many chronic diseases in developing countries as compared to the developed countries?
Why is the rate increasing as much? Is that what your question is?
Yes, and there is like more chronic diseases in developing countries as compared to the developed ones. So why?
Yeah, that's a good question. Does anyone want to? I can help answer that question. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that question about why is there such a high rate of chronic disease in developing countries?
I can probably just give maybe one example. Yeah. I hope that it's okay. I hope it's right.
Go for it. We want to hear it.
I remember learning in, I think it was population health, like last year, about how traditional foods have been changed and traditional diets have been changed a lot in developing countries, and we're seeing more cash crops and people not really farming what they would be traditionally eating, which would be usually more of a healthy diet, where now it's a lot more, I think it's like maize and things like that, and eating, I guess, a lot more of a fast food diet as well, which I think has increased definitely like diabetes and obesity rates in those developing countries, because I guess that traditional food has been changed into more of a Western diet, as we've already seen. When that's changed in our own countries and fast food's been introduced, that's when chronic illnesses were seen to increase. It's sort of now happening, I guess, in those developing countries, and it's maybe a little bit later than when it happened to us, but it's now sort of catching up. And yeah, they're sort of still fighting maybe infectious diseases, but now they've also got these non-communicable diseases as well.
Wonderful answer. Yep, that's exactly right. And you couldn't have answered it better. Anyone else want to add anything to Anika's response to Hush? No. Yeah, so exactly right. And in answer to your question, Hush, when you look at per population head for comparison, developing countries aren't necessarily more. They might look more on the whole, often because these countries have population in the total population sense, more people. So say India, for example, has far higher rates of this disease say diabetes or something, just because simply they have more people. But if you're looking at it in a comparison in terms of actual, per people per square of how many, and you think about back to your epi and how many people are in comparison population groups, and then it's similar. The thing with the developing countries is it's growing quicker. So they were, which was what you just talked about, Annika, too, and for a long time they didn't have a great deal of chronic disease, but now it's really just increasing at a far more rapid rate than it is in developed countries. And that's for several reasons, partly because that change in nutrition, exactly, and people in developing countries sort of suddenly having more access to a lot of these foods, because a lot of the multinational corporations are actually coming into these countries in greater force. There's a lot more McDonald's, there's a lot more, so a lot of these places that weren't open to these foods for many years. We talked about trade last week, but trade sanctions and a whole lot of things meant that they were actually protected for a long time as well. But also they don't have the preventative messages that we have been putting out, because they don't understand that it's actually not a good way to eat. Because often if you've been in poverty and you're able to afford something that's seen to be a luxury, such as fast food, then you see it as a good aspect. You're moving up in the world and but you don't understand that it's actually not healthy. So in terms of public health messaging, we have got a lot of work to do in those developing countries to sort of level the playing field, to slow that increase, that really rapid transition from chronic disease development as well. Does that help answer your question, Harsh?
Yeah, it does. But do you think that physical activity is also related to the chronic diseases? Or
Absolutely, yeah. So, sedentary lifestyle. So it's diet and also sedentary lifestyle as well. It's a combination of all those things. But then, they're very individual characteristics too. We need to start thinking about the food systems and food processes, and that's part of the nutrition transition too, is what was traditional foods, which were probably not available due to different food systems, different cropping coming in, those sorts of things. So it's not necessarily just they eat bad and don't exercise. It might be it's this whole shift in what's available, how it's available, and if it's safe to exercise in their neighbourhoods. All those sorts of bigger systems things as well.
do you think culture is also playing the part in the lack of physical activity, especially for women?
That's a very good question. What do you think, Harsh? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it does.
That's really interesting. Okay, yeah.
Because in Middle Eastern, in the Saudi Arabia, in India, and Pakistan, these countries, I don't think women in most areas, I don't think women are allowed to exercise. They're allowed to go out of the house even. Yeah.
Yep.
To do physical activities, as compared to the Western society. I think it can also relate to more, rates of chronic diseases and,
That's you've really hit the nail on the head as a really interesting aspect. And, what's exciting about this is that, I agree, Jess, that's something I'd considered before, is that, we've got these problems, health problems, wicked health problems, as they like to call them, but what works in a developing country is definitely not necessarily going to, in a developed country, is not going to work in a different culture. And how as public health practitioners, what do we do about that? Who's got some thoughts on a solution? What would you do, Harsh? How would you do you think that there's a different way of, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think we should, there should be a public health member or maybe professional working in a community who would encourage physical activity or, educate people about, doing something which improve the health, and, I don't know, break the culture barriers somehow. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I don't think policy is gonna do something about it, because people aren't gonna, they're gonna say, oh, it's our culture, we're not gonna, do that. We can't do that because it's against the law, it's against.
Couldn't agree more. Policy is not effective in that space
Yeah.
at all, which, really.
I think education would improve the conditions, not policies.
And then maybe working within the communities to find a space that's culturally appropriate for that.
And encourage people.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. Anyone else have got any other comments, or how they think that could address something like that in a different culture?
I think just building on that, I wonder then if you have to consider, when it comes to stakeholders, then the men would be like a gate stakeholder, where you'd have to kind of work with them to be able to, my connection's not very stable, sorry, can you hear me?
No, sorry, right, just, keep going.
Like, then the men kind of become the gate stakeholder in that kind of situation. I wonder if you have to kind of tailor your approach so that you're kind of targeting the men's perspectives and views to really effectively address that.
Yeah, so changing the view, changing the cultural views with the main gatekeepers, which would be the men for that.
Yeah, I think that's a vital point here. I think changing the men's mentality about, women, I think it's gonna encourage them to go out and do physical exercise. I think that's a really main point.
Oh, look, I have hope for the future between us all. That's, this is fantastic. It's thinking, and you're already doing exactly what I want you to do, is start thinking about these issues from those non-traditional, exactly. Policy wouldn't work in this space in a different culture, Harsh, and looking at those stakeholders, looking at those principles of public health that we talk about, but how can we get the right people on board to make the change that we need to happen? And that's where you've got to really think about, who's protecting what cultural, an understanding of the communities that you're working in as well, I think is key. That's fantastic. I could keep talking all day. It's almost time to go, because we had the library chat for the first half. The other little task that I had for us to do, which I won't get because it will take more than 2 minutes that we've got left of tutorial time, but I've uploaded a couple of documents on the e-tutorial page. You'll just see them there. And there's one that's actually in regard to the EAT report. So I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at the EAT report or heard about what the EAT report's about, but it's a little bit I just want to, you sort of touched on an example that I wanted to get to with this report as well, Harsh, is that this is the biggest thing at the moment in terms of public transforming eating globally. It's championed by The Lancet, which of course is one of the top medical journal in the world. It's endorsed by WHO, and it's about a way to eat that's going to be sustainable for the planet, but also for our health, to start to address some of these chronic diseases. And some of the big recommendations are to really reduce your red meat intake. Yes, and it's slightly controversial. That's exactly right, Jess. So that's what I want you to start thinking about. So there's the official report that's in the content for the week, and there's a very slick, launch of it, which I thought was interesting because it's, has a very Western approach to it. And one of the biggest criticism is how does this fit into other cultures, particularly low-income countries where they need more protein in some instances, where this diet's really suggesting that you just eat plant-based and grain-based, which is definitely got loads of health benefits, but there's certain populations that might not fit, and it doesn't take that into account very well. So I just put up a little review there from a different organisation that gives you a bit of a critical look into this. And it's just a nice reminder, I think, for us to, you know, we are our own detectives in all this work. Take your knowledge and apply it critically. And even though something's been endorsed by the Lancet or something, you know, these big bodies, and it is very rigorous evidence-based and all those sorts of things, there still needs to be a critique of how this one size is not going to fit globally, and working in ways that doesn't assume that, I think, could possibly, if we adopt global guidelines on things, I think that's not going to work. For exactly what you're talking about, Harsh. Like, you know, it might work in our world about exercise, but it's not going to work in different cultures with different religious beliefs. And it's the same with diet. We have to start thinking about the cultural aspect and those different things. So coming up with one global set of idealistic dietary guidelines, awesome in theory, practically might be an absolute disaster. But yeah, so anyway, that's just something for you to take home and think about, and when you're reading all these things that come out. But yeah, I think that you've already done a marvelous job today looking critically at these things, and that when I can see students doing that on their own, that gets me excited, because I know that we're doing our job. And you'll do amazing things when you get out there. All right, I will let you go. All these resources will be up on Views, but if you have any questions about the assignment, as it's getting a bit closer, email me, and we'll start next week's tutorial off with another block of time just to check in about the assignment as well. Anyone got any questions before I head off now? No? All good. All right. Well, have a great week, guys, and thanks for a great tutorial, and we'll talk more online.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.